Most marketers are still following old playbooks written decades ago. The rules have changed, but the advice hasn't. Flipping the Playbook is your license to rebel. This is your front row seat to finding out how leading CMOs are tearing up the old rules and building strategies that move the needle. If you're tired of being told that this is how it's done, let's flip the playbook together. Here's your host, Reza Moaiandin.
Today on Flipping the Playbook, we're joined by Anthony Rose, co-founder and CEO of SeedLegal's. The company now closes more founding rounds in the UK than anyone else. Before that, Anthony built and launched BBC's iPlayer, turning it into one of BBC's biggest digital successes. By running it just like in a startup, he's built across 3D graphics, peer-to-peer music, internet video, social, and TV. Along the way, decided fundraising was broken. Today, we're talking about growth, trust, positioning, and playbooks he's flipped along the way. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's start with what SeedLegal is. If you were to describe it in one sentence without saying legal automation, what would you say?
It's the people and platform that you go to if you're an early stage founder to help you get investment ready, fundraise, get investment in, and grow your company.
And what problem did you hit personally that made you think legal should be automated?
Great point. Let's say that I want to invest in your company and we meet at the pub and I love what you're doing. And I say, great, I'd love to invest £20,000. What we would both like is a simple way that you could go, great, give me 10 minutes on my phone. I'll send you a document that's been carefully worded and written to protect both our interests, that gives you these amazing tax benefits. So you can give me the £20,000, you can benefit when my company grows, and that's it. As a practical matter, at least until SeedLegal's, you'd have to find a lawyer, you'd pay them a few £1,000s, I'd find a lawyer, they'd go backwards and forwards between each other. Neither of us would understand what they're talking about, and they'd make what was a simple thing enormously difficult. The reality is, particularly in many legal spaces, and fundraising is one of them, the things that are done are remarkably self-similar. There are tens of thousands of funding rounds done each year, many on SeedLegal's, and in most cases, it's identical. I mean, the valuation is different, but the deal terms are the same. So what if someone could just put together a platform that says, you tell me the deal terms you want, you tell me the deal terms you want, computer works out all the legals, these have been tried and tested thousands of times, reviewed more than any other documents, to get you there faster. What I love is I'm a technologist, initially my days with Kazaa, the music file sharing company, then BBC iPlayer with video, now in legal. And what I love doing is seeing what, people are consenting to want to do between each other. That sounds all wrong, but in the space of fundraising in this case, and then taking the friction out of it. So that also sounds wrong, but taking the friction out of it so that you can, so that you can complete the funding round faster.
Yeah. And what's the original story of SeedLegal's? I mean, I know all the friction points of legal, having run my own startups. I know all the pains, but what's the original story for SeedLegal's?
Right. So, after I left the BBC, I went back to startup roots, built a startup, sold it, built another startup, sold it, invested in a few, got tired of paying lawyers, thought no more about this. And then at a party held by an investor in my previous startups, I met Laurent Laffy, now co-founder, and he is an ex-VC serial angel investor genius. And he was saying, as an investor, lawyers take forever, they make mistakes, they charge a fortune, we should change it. And I was looking for next thing to do. And the idea resonated. Often when you get together and meet someone at an event, you say you'll do something, and you never do. But actually we did. We met up again a few weeks later, hatched the idea, and, with an amazing team, have built the platform since then.
Amazing. And obviously you've built and sold several startups. You've also built inside the BBC. I'm wondering what's the biggest difference in how growth occurs across these different environments? Bring that a little bit to life for us, please.
Right. So I've got a fun story there, which is, there I was living in Australia, doing, music with Kazar and so on. And then I got a call saying, how'd you like to join the BBC and head up iPlayer? BBC, where are the stock options? But I was persuaded. But, startups have got, move fast and break things. You're always money constrained and resource constrained, but you can make decisions quickly. And I was kind of worried about this state, funded BBC, giant organization, speed of decision making is not its strong points. It's legendary for stakeholder meetings and so on. And so I was thinking, what would be my metric that would make me happy and successful for me, as well as, of course, for the company? And I thought, in a startup, I would say 75% of the time is spent on doing things you love. At SeedLegal's, that's product development, talking to customers, talking to the team to create new things and so on. Maybe 20% is what I call the cost of doing business. It's kind of, you don't hate it, but if you don't do it, you don't have a business, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to do
Nobody likes to do
budgets.
it.
Exactly. You got to do budgets. You got to do investor reporting, planning, all that kind of stuff. And maybe 5% is the stuff that's the unpleasant stuff, HR or whatever needs to be dealt with. So after I'd been at the BBC about a year, I looked back to see how that matched what I'd seen in startup life. And the answer was, I was delighted that 75% was I was doing the stuff that I love to do. The 20% of the cost of doing business, as I call it, was the same percentage, but different. So in a startup, you have to spend your time fundraising and pitching to investors, and you don't get money, you're dead. At the BBC, it was stakeholder meetings, governance, and so on. Different things. It's the cost of business. And the 5% of the unpleasant stuff was the same 5%. So actually, I really loved my time at the BBC. And I think it was the compartmentalizing and realizing that if I could take the cost of doing business and make that small and spend a lot of time on the stuff that hopefully I was good at and enjoyed doing and brought value, then that would be the win-win.
Okay.
And my suggestion is anyone working in any company, think about what your batting average is. If you're spending 70% of your time doing stuff you don't like, either something's very wrong with that company or something's very wrong with the way you've constructed your role in it, but you may want to look at other things. If you can get to 90% doing awesome stuff, then life is great. As a founder, you're probably going to have a mixture of things because there's a bunch of stuff that no one else wants to or can deal with that as a founder you have to deal with.
Yeah. And how does that translate into growth? So when you're trying to grow that part, whether there was the BBC iPlayer, now SeedLegal's, how much of that time is actually allocated to growth and how you're growing that business?
Right. So I think, you've raised a very interesting point because as a founder, if you start your company, a couple of founders get together in the pub, have an idea, there are 2 of you and then 5 of you, you're very much hands-on at the beginning. But then as your business grows, there may be this difference between what you love and you're good at and what the company needs. So maybe you love coding and you're good at coding, but now the company needs a leader and needs someone to build the team and needs someone to be on sales calls or marketing or out at events. So you as a founder need to reinvent yourself. And if you don't, you're sentenced to sort of being sidelined in the company or having to keep exiting companies and make new companies because you're just not right for the later company, which then I think takes me to your point about growth, because your company needs to grow. I mean, we're going to get to the heart of capitalism in a minute, but I think one of the fun things as a founder, I don't have kids, but imagine you're a father and you are parents and your kid's 2 years old and you go, they're gorgeous at 2. If only they could stay 2 forever. But that doesn't happen. They've got to get older. And likewise, as a company, you go, I love it with just 5 people. And if only we could stay 5 people forever. Well, kind of you can, but it's a failure, because if your goal is to change the world and have a significant impact with what you're doing, you've got to be more. So
Yep.
you have to get to the next step. And then the question is how you reinvent yourself so you still love what you're doing when you're 50 people, 100, 200 people. And that means either you change what you're doing, or you surround yourself with, senior team or exec team who can complement you and take on the things that is not you. So, for me, I love product. I love talking to customers. I love, as you've probably seen, being out there on stage, presenting, evangelizing. That means somebody else has to be picking up, the tax returns, budget, estimating, investor relations, team management, HR. And, I'm delighted that I've got fantastic colleagues that together we pick up these pieces, and I can still continue to do the things that I very much enjoy and hopefully bring value for as well.
Yeah. That's amazing answer, and I totally resonate with your wordings around changing. And as the company grows, you need to reinvent yourself, especially as you get to like 20, and then there is the 50 and 60, and then there's the 100. So I totally understand your point on that one. Now, coming to the product itself, SeedLegal's is in the legal sector, and generally in legal and finance sector, they're called high trust categories. People really need to trust you to really buy into you. How do you win credibility and trust early when you launch a product like SeedLegal's?
So that is a great question, and one that's being replayed live as we're now launching in the US. So, it's really interesting, which is when we started SeedLegal's, I was the first salesperson, and I'd be doing customer calls literally on a beanbag outside our office, in the corridor, so that it didn't disturb my colleagues who were coding. And people would go, how do I trust your platform? How many funding rounds have been done on SeedLegal's? And I'd go like, 3, and you're waiting for them to go like 100 or no, 3. So it was hard. But now, of course, life is much easier, because firstly, you've done, you can say we've done like 10,000 funding rounds, but more likely someone has come across SeedLegal's. It hasn't been us cold calling them. It's very likely 3 founders have told them about SeedLegal's, or it's been in their LinkedIn feed. So building trust is much better when it's others telling you to trust something than the company that's pitching you saying you should trust us. But how do you get past that catch-22? And I think there are a few things. So firstly, if the founders on an early sales call and they know what they're talking about and they admit when the platform's still a work in progress and so on, that's a good sign. The second thing is some customers will make decisions faster than others. So if you are a fintech selling to a bank, this is a huge problem, because the bank wants you to have, $20 million of indemnity insurance and SOC 2 and ISO 27001, 0001 or whatever. Your sales cycle will be forever. But if you're selling to early stage founders are scrappy. They want to disrupt the establishment just like you do. And the other thing is they don't have time in the day or money to go and pay, in my case, lawyers for all sorts of stuff. They've met somebody, they want the funds, they've come across this person, and they basically want it to be sufficiently good to meet their needs. This is not to say I'm building a platform whose goal is sufficiently good. In fact, I think of it like BMW. I can spend unlimited capex building something that protects you in a safety cell if things go wrong and you hit a tree and it's raining and you're wearing your seatbelt or not, because documents have been reviewed so many times. And I can put so much engineering effort and legal effort into building the machine to make lots of documents, whereas a lawyer is just going to make a document for you and put the sufficient effort in that will probably be okay. So winning the trust is a combination of, you're going to lose some initially. Some people are sitting on this trust spectrum, and you probably look at it yourself. You're going to try a new soft drink. You're just going to go to the store and buy it. You're going to wait for someone to give you one to try. You're going to wait for 3 friends. You're going to wait to see it pop in your feed several times, something talking about it, then you'll get it. So reducing the barrier, making it lower price, targeting early adopters is good. But all of this is really interesting because now that we've launched in the US and I spend some time in New York, it's like me going backwards in time, 7 years. And when people go, how many funding rounds have you done? And they're like in America, 3. Never heard of you guys. But now it's a little bit different because I've got the mothership at home, 160 people, tens of thousands of customers. They're not in this territory, but I know that I can move fast. I know what works, and hopefully I can see, can I run the same playbook or is it a different playbook? And that's quite fascinating.
Yeah. And when you're positioning, or when you position, or now you're positioning in US, are you positioning deliberately against traditional law firms, or are you positioning yourself around founder speed and what you were saying, the scrappy side of and the certainty? So how are you positioning yourself now?
It's a very good question. So let's take a step back and think about it in a generic way. So for many companies, they're building now with AI or they're doing something that's disrupting the incumbents. Should they position themselves, if you imagine a sort of spectrum, on the one end of the spectrum, the friend of the insurance company, lawyer, whatever it is, want to partner with them, almost a B2B proposition. On the other hand, if you remember when TransferWise, now Wise, launched, there were ads on the tube line saying your bank is screwing you. We are here to fix that. So they took an incredibly aggressive approach. And so if you take that aggressive approach, you're sort of going to burn bridges, right? The next time you go and talk to someone who could be a partner and they took the tube to get there and there was a thing saying you're screwing them, it's an awkward conversation. So where do I want to sit in that place? And I think I've changed the discussion because it's not, initially it was about, our pricing is less than lawyers and, it's faster and so on. But actually I kind of prefer to not talk about lawyers and just talk about what you want that's going to help you. Because when you go to a lawyer, they're going to help you. The output is going to be a legal document. What you as the founder want, you're not cared about the legal document. You want a great pitch deck. You want to be able to find investors. You want to close investment. You want to hire people. There are a set of things you want to do, and the legal documents are the means to that. So if I start talking about the legal documents, it's kind of boring. What I want to do is talk about the solution. So if you go to the SeedLegal's website, apart from the word legal in the URL, I think it mentions it once on the homepage. It's basically the fastest way to close your next round. Here's how to incentivize your team. Here's how to get your R&D back from the government. So what you want to do is you want to shift the playing field into something that, I'm confusing metaphors, that you've got a moat, that you're doing differently. And so it's not that you're better or worse or cheaper or whatever. And if you can do that, then I think you are going to win the hearts and minds, hopefully, of your customers, because they're going to go, these people are still like, pitch 1.0. The world's moved on. This is about scaling and growing faster. This is not about doing some legal agreement. Dude, I want to be here. And so, to get to your question, can you replay the same thing in the US? Or is it a different, concept in the US? It's part and part. The legal framework in the US is a bit different, but founders are exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you. And it's interesting. So what I'm hearing is you're talking about, you're really pushing out the benefits now rather than the features. And that's how you're trying to win the hearts and minds. Is that correct?
Not only is that correct, but when I do a lot of pitch coaching for founders and pitch feedback and so on, and the number one mistake founders make, which I learned, is that they say essentially how clever they are by describing what they do, that nobody's interested. What you want to do is you want to show the problem that you solve. Let me give you an example. Let's say I'm talking to a founder and they tell me, dude, you're being ripped off by your home insurance. You must be paying 50% too much for your home insurance. It's insane. We're building this new thing that uses AI, that runs a reverse auction process. In 5 minutes, we'll find you somebody to spend 30% less on your home insurance. It takes you 5 minutes to get started. I'm going to go, that's amazing. This evening, I'm going to go there. And then you look at their pitch deck and it says, using AI and blockchain to revolutionize the insurance industry. And then there's diagrams of stuff. And it's like, I've fallen asleep already. So what they're doing is subconsciously showing how clever they are and all the stuff they built, but nobody's interested. And I realized this early on with SeedLegal's, where the first version of our website said, we do legal document automation and contract generation. And then one day I thought, there are 0 people in the world who wake up and go, you know what I want? I want contract automation. And so I got rid of that. And it now just says the fastest way to close your funding round. And then you can, once you've got customers, you can go to the next step where I'm not telling you how fabulous we are. My customers are telling you. So when you go on the SeedLegal's homepage, you've got videos with various people saying, hey, we love doing this and it saved me and I would never have done without them. So you're hearing from people, hopefully just like you. And that, I think, is the most powerful.
It is, absolutely. I mean, I've used your platform and you can totally see, like I just log in and see the tables and I go, right, this is good. I can sign it. Then I don't need to worry about anything else because it's backed up with previous legal tables and everything else. So it makes it nice and easy. Coming on to bringing customers, and you were talking to me earlier about how you're pitching it now and how you've got individuals, testimonials, and etc. I want to go back a little bit earlier on. What were the first 2 or 3 channels that really work well for you and why?
So go-to-market is one of the biggest challenges, of course. And I think the first thing every founder should realize is many founders love building stuff. They're technical founders. But the problem is you have to switch gears from building to selling. Otherwise, you're dead. You're just going to spend forever building, which is basically spending money and never making money. And then you're dead. But many founders think they're a bit embarrassed to start selling because it's not ready yet. And, the concept of selling is a bit, venal and so on. So, they might put it off, but selling is the only way you're going to have people using it and paying your way so that you could expand and do more. So how are you going to find customers and who should you target? And getting it wrong means you're going to spend lots of money on either buying lots of pay-per-click ads that don't perform or, getting booths at events or flying around. So the first thing I think is, can you think about which potential customers will make the fastest sales decisions? So sometimes I meet, founders on SeedLegal's telling me they want to sell to, FTSE 500 companies, or they want to sell to banks. It's like, dude, they've got a purchase cycle of like 18 months. You have to tell investors you're going to raise money to last 18 months to maybe get a sale. And only at that point you see, and so you've got all these letters of intent, but no money. Instead of trying to close £300,000 deals that are awesome, that will take 18 months, is it possible you can chase £30,000 or £3,000 deals that may close in 3 weeks or 3 months? It's like, no, we just want to have these big deals. Now, there's nothing wrong with sticking to that strategy, but I think if you do have a choice of fast movers or slow movers, pick fast movers. In the case of SeedLegal's, I could sell potentially to founders, investors, or lawyers. And founders, if you're on a 30-minute Zoom call and people go, that's awesome, where have you been all my life? Great, that was fast decision making. When it comes to investors or accelerators, they go, love what you're doing. We do like 4 investments a year. We'll keep you in mind for the next one. And you talk to lawyers and they go, sounds really interesting. We have our next partner meeting. Oh, you've just missed it last January. The next one's next January. We'll consider it then. It's like, so I focus on the people who make decisions fastest. And then the question is, where are you going to find them? So at SeedLegal's, we found that community-led growth is really the winner for us. That means, for those who don't know the terms, is typically product-led growth, which is build it and they'll come, and community-led growth, which is go where your users are, be part of those user groups, events, trade shows, whatever, get out and talk to users, win users, and they will tell their friends. And so that has worked really well. And now, in the UK, we obviously, you know, a big part of powering the
For
startup
sure.
ecosystem and events. And so when we launched in the US, I was thinking, can we run the same playbook, community-led growth, be part of events, which then obviously the US is enormous. So it means picking one city. Okay, great. Let's pick New York. It's close to London. It's got an amazing event scene. It's 5 hours time zone difference, so it works. I can literally run everywhere in New York, which I love doing. So but of course, then you see what's the same or different. But figuring out your go-to-market is a non-trivial problem. You have to try different things to see what sticks and what doesn't. And then as soon as you get some, indicators that something's working,
Yep.
you might then, put more effort into that.
Okay, no, that's incredible. Thank you so much. When it comes to the traction, is it referrals that works for you? Is it word of mouth? Or is it other things that you do, partnerships or SEO or content? What is it that you see works? And then how do you measure it?
Oh, okay, great. So here's the 101 on all ways of finding customers and see what works. Okay. So referrals are great, which is people say, hey, I love what you're doing. I'd like to spread the word. I run an accelerator. Or basically anyone that has access to a lot of potential customers and can send some of them your way. There's definitely no harm with referral agreements. Standard is typically 10%, maybe 10% of the money that you'll earn from the customer over the next 12 months is the referral fee. Make sure you don't pay it all up front, only pay it when the customer pays you or you'll be bankrupt. So that is good. You may find that referrers sort of overpromise and underdeliver. It doesn't matter because you're only paid on successful referrals, but you probably shouldn't bank on referrals because people are enthusiastic and then the fewer come through. If I found it's a win-win, but don't bet your customers all coming through referrals. So the next one is pay-per-click ads. So you can give vast amounts of money to Facebook and Google. You should only do this once your lifetime value is greater than your customer acquisition cost, which is normally where you figured out at about Series A, where you're going to raise millions to do that. If you start buying paid ads too early, before you can monetize them, you're just going to run out of money. So the next one is SEO. And now AIO,
AI,
which is
AI, it's like a
GEO, whatever it
scramble.
is. Yeah, exactly, which is obviously critical, but it's a slow burner. So you want to see, when people searching for certain things, you think they're searching for particular words, but they may often be searching for other words. Obviously, you want to rank higher. In a sense, it doesn't cost you anything because it's free incomings, but you've got to work on it, which then takes me to the next thing, which is what I call content marketing. So that's where you create a lot of content. And I'm amazed and dismayed when I see how people don't focus on that. For me, content marketing is, I would say, the number one right from the beginning of SeedLegal's. So, if you see I post on LinkedIn most days, I put quite a bit of effort in a non-strategic, I should say, way. I do founder interviews. I do partner interviews. I write articles and blog posts. One of the things I do is the third time a customer asks us a question, I will make a video or an article as a sort of scaling thing. So you get an answer. My team have hopefully a definitive answer. And then Google will pick it up or, ChatGPT will pick it up and people will have a good, high quality answer that now appears in search results. So you should definitely get your team, whoever you are, to start writing articles, thought leadership pieces, how-to pieces, maybe even slightly controversial pieces
Mhm.
on what you're doing. And then there are events and trade shows. I'm a big fan of startup events in our case. One of the problems is it's hard to measure an ROI because when you buy pay-per-click ads, there's a tracking pixel on it. But when your team goes, we spend £5,000 sponsoring an event, and how many customers did we get from the event? I don't really know, I can't track them. And then it's a bit hard to persuade, your budget team to spend the next £5,000 because you can't show what came from it.
Course. And it's a long-term strategy, isn't it? Especially same goes with content marketing. You can't put X value against them. The finance team looks at it and it goes, hang on a second, where is that money going? So I totally get that. I totally understand that.
Exactly.
When it comes to the marketing, where do you generally see startups getting it wrong? And, you know, especially when it comes to product, when they're trying to advertise the product or market the product, where do you see it goes wrong?
Great question. And by the way, I don't profess to know the answer, but I think the first thing is most founders don't actually know the difference between sales and marketing. It took me years to kind of figure it out. So, sales is generally reaching out to individual people and winning them. It could be LinkedIn outreach, it could be whatever, and it could be inbound, ideally. And marketing is talking to many people. So it's building your brand. Um, it's doing events and things like that. So once you understand these two buckets, then it becomes clearer. Now, one of the really interesting things is that if you are selling big ticket items, you're selling £50,000 deals to, companies doing hundreds of millions in revenue, it's very often a sales-led process. So your website may be kind of unimportant. You've got a team of often people who've been in this industry who are reaching out to sales execs or whatever it is, the purchaser in these companies on many month-long sales cycles, often going to trade fairs and events to find them. And it's all sales-driven. And you're delighted when you get a sale because you may have invested £20,000 of time getting the sale. But if you're selling, widgets for $3 or each, there's no sales process. It's all marketing. So it's all mass because you can't afford to do one-on-one. And at SeedLegal's, we sit somewhere in between. And I've seen a diagram, which I think is wonderful, which is, are you selling ants, rabbits, deer, something, or elephants?
Yeah.
And if you're selling, ants, well, you're never talking to the individual ants. You're sort of putting out honey and lots of ants will come. And if you're selling elephants, well, you're going to put a huge amount of time to get this elephant because it's a big prize. So adapting your strategy is really important because if you're spending lots of money on sales and the ticket size is small, it's going nowhere. And likewise, relying on marketing to get large companies to make big ticket purchase decisions that have got complex stakeholder approval and multiple parties that need sign off, you're probably never going to find the champion to even stop that process. So I think the understanding of that is the most important first step.
Well, that's fantastic answer. Focusing on the marketing part, when you hire marketing leaders, what signals tell you they can grow the product and you can trust that they're going to be able to grow that marketing?
They don't use AI for their copy generation, is the first thing. I hate AI slop for marketing and sales. I mean, AI is amazing and we use AI tools, for a huge range of things, for reviewing documents and other things. But, if I see outbound messaging that's written by AI, it's just an instant turn off. So don't do it. I think, back in Insta days, there was the no filters moment. And I think there's what I think is the no AI moment. So, my posts, I'd like to write them myself. Maybe you use AI to get some inspiration, but as soon as you do, you often get sucked into this hugely lengthy, beautifully written, but clearly not human written. So I like a marketing team who understand the company's tone of voice. Having a company tone of voice is really important. It's going to vary between your customer, right? It could be, if you're brew dog, it's going to be punk, whatever. If it's selling to a law firm, don't have people with baseball caps. It's something very different. So develop your tone of voice and then find people who love the brand, run with the tone of voice, are happy and fun and inspiring. And you can leave to generate really great marketing material on their own. And I think those to me are the key attributes. And, when we come up with a new product at SeedLegal's, it's a joy when you can say, hey, team, we've got this new thing we work on. And then they come up with the graphics and the wording, and you're just blown away. It exceeded your expectations. They put it better than you did. On the flip side, if it's clearly written by AI, it's like, okay, we have to have a discussion about that. That's not really the way we want to do things.
Yeah, of course, of course. Now, things are going wrong. What's the biggest mistake founders generally make when they hire their first marketing lead?
So, well, in the early days, your product often doesn't yet have product market fit. So it's not feature complete. You haven't really determined who your core users are. Maybe it doesn't work very well and it breaks. And so it's a challenge. If you don't hire sales or marketing people, you'll never sell anything. And if you do and you get them too early, then you've got a few problems. One, they may twiddle their thumbs because there's nothing yet to be marketed or sold. Number two, it may turn out that one of the big mistakes is when you hire a marketing person, and the same goes for sales and the same goes for software developers. Are they people who are going to be doing the work themselves, or are they looking to build a team? And if you hire somebody that comes out of a large org and wants a CMO or CTO or whatever title, they probably want to build a team, and they probably don't want to do stuff themselves. And the problem is, if you don't have money, they're just going to burn all your money. Firstly, by them having a giant salary, and secondly, they're going to start hiring all these other people. So, and now you've got no sales yet, but you're bleeding money because you hired a senior marketing person. So I think you want to start scrappy initially and have junior people. I'm also a fan of having, full-time people, even if they're junior, who live and breathe the product, love what you're doing, and have them grow into a role later. Now, the side effect, the unwanted side effect of that is when you hire junior people and you don't have any senior people, they're going to make a lot of mistakes. As senior people would know instantly, you dude, why you bother spending money on this channel or this customer acquisition cost? It's insane. You shouldn't be paying £150 CPA because our cost of, the margin we make is only this. It's just not going to work. Or you're putting all your effort into SEO, which is a long play. We're never going to make our targets by doing that. Whereas a more seasoned person is going to talk about an omni-channel approach and all sorts of buzzwords that you don't know. So it's a difficult one, but I would be cautious about hiring somebody whose CV looks great because they worked at Apple or Unilever or something like that, because they may be completely the wrong fit for your super scrappy early stage startup, where your best marketing might be someone standing on Trafalgar Square with a cardboard cutout that says users wanted, and creating some buzz.
No, that's amazing. Now, fast forward a little bit more into a scale up. If you were advising a new CMO joining a scale up, what would you want them to get right in their first 90 days?
Well, I think I would like to understand the difference between what we've been doing so far and what they are thinking. I think I'd like to understand what we've been getting wrong so far, and I'd like to see their strategy for the future. And I'd also like to see. I'm not a big fan of seeing strategies. I mean, because like, yeah, we've got a strategy paper, dude. What's something we should be doing today? So I think probably the most important thing I'd like to see from them, like 4 days in, is here are 3 small things we should be doing immediately. If they can say, give me a month to write a strategy paper, well, we've lost a month, and then it's going to take a while to read the strategy paper. And the strategy paper is going to have this huge set of things which we won't be able to cite to. And basically 3 months will go by with nothing. And we may never do the strategy thing because it's too complicated.
Mhm.
So I like to see, obviously, a sort of North Star. I think the biggest wins, the biggest new market or existing market is this. We should focus on it. Also, I found we're wasting money on these 3 things, and we're leaving, money on the table by not doing these 3 things. So where I'm going with this is a mixture of big picture and immediate pragmatism and immediate wins.
When it comes to marketing, and we're coming to a close now, what were the things that you believed in 5 years ago that now has completely reversed and changed?
Well, obviously, nobody thought about AI 5 years ago. So the cost of building something, it's not quite your question, has, dropped dramatically. So previously, if you wanted a website, you'd have to spend, tens of thousands of pounds, someone building a website or a brand. And now you can go on Lovable and literally in 10 minutes of vibe coding, I mean, it's not going to build a functioning database driven site, but it'll build a homepage and other pages in
Mhm.
minutes, which will be really brilliant. I make a Lovable powered website at least 3 times a week when I'm talking to customers and they say, can you give me feedback on my website? I go, I could, but I just built you one that I think is better while I made coffee or on the train. So the speed of creating code and graphics and copy and so on has changed. And that fundamentally is going to change everything because in the past, investors, if you told them you had to raise £300,000 in order to hire developers to build it, and you couldn't have a product until you got this development money, now they're going to look at you and go, dude, there's no way I'm giving you £300,000 to build it. You need to build this with vibe coding and, Claude code, for £5,000 on your own money. And once you've built it, get back to me. So the IP for building stuff is no longer the moat that it used to be. The moat
Mhm.
is going to be found in personalities and distribution. And distribution makes the marketing side and the partnership side even more important, and the coding side less important because the cost of that's going to decrease. So I think putting that all together has meant probably an inversion from 5 years ago, which is raise a lot of money to build something that's completely unique because the market isn't going to change quickly, to actually use AI to build something really quickly. And if you don't build it quickly, someone else, actually, there are probably 300 people building what you're doing right now. You've got to cut through the noise very quickly.
That's amazing. I have one final question, and that's what's one counterintuitive thing that Seed Legal does that other B2B companies should copy?
So I think it's a great question. I think it's actually fundamental to SeedLegal. So, occasionally, customers go, SeedLegals is great. I can do, these deal terms really easily, but I want to make this change, and it's quite difficult to do. And I have to tell you, it's not a technical limitation; it's a strategy. So when you go to lawyers, they use, Microsoft Word and red line track changes, and essentially the cost of changing any word is the same as changing any other word. And
Uh-huh.
so people make all sorts of stupid changes, like every time it says, we'll use reasonable efforts, they change it to best commercially practical efforts or whatever it might be. And so endless amounts of backwards and forwards goes into changing every word. what I do is I say some things are really easy to change, and some things I intentionally make difficult to change so that both parties coalesce on agreeing the key deal terms and don't want to futz around with the rest. And I liken it to, you buy yourself a two-door, car and coupe. You don't try and like work your way in through the back door or the boot. So you just open the front door, move the seat, and get in that way. So what people don't realize is everything in your life you design around what's available to you that's easiest to do. You go to the store and buy a suit because you could just go to the store and get a suit and come back with it. You could go to Savile Row and spend thousands and they measure you and you come back weeks. You don't. Hardly anyone does. And, the kitchen, the things you make for dinner are based on, the things you've got available. So the counterintuitive thing is that when we started SeedLegal's, our big challenge was, how many deal terms should we make sort of agreeable, that you can negotiate in a round? If I let you only negotiate 3 things in a round, like what's the valuation, the dilution, and like one other thing, a funding round would take like 8 seconds, but no one would ever do a funding round on SeedLegal's because there would always be something they wanted to agree that we didn't have. If I made everything changeable, then that's awesome, but you'd have to go to a lawyer because people would share everything. And so my big challenge was to work out which set of things needed to be configurable and which not. And now, many years later, there's great data on it. 98% or whatever rounds complete on SeedLegal's, and 2% people want to do something they couldn't do on the platform, which is, I think, a great batting average. And I guess likewise, 2% of people need some custom clothing made or something. But for the vast majority, it's much more efficient and much more empowering and counterintuitively faster and better that you intentionally constrain the sort of freedom of negotiation, if you can call it that, or amount of changes as possible. It makes everything better. Maybe it's like going to a Chinese restaurant where they're like 700 things on the menu, and you're going, oh my God, the problem of choice, as opposed to going to the French restaurant. Would you like chicken, or would you like beef, or would you like fish? And actually, you had a great meal, and your brain is not frazzled from trying to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah,
because the chef recommendation pointed you directly to what you wanted.
What to eat, so you don't have to make that choice, and it's faster. It closes faster. People make decisions quicker, and it's a much better way of keeping good control as well. That's all the time we've got. Thank you very much, Anthony. This has been Anthony Rose, co-founder and CEO of SeedLegal's. You can find him on LinkedIn. Follow him. He's got great articles, great distribution of content as content marketing goes. And also you'll find his link in the show notes. This is a fairly new show. If there is any feedbacks that you've got, please send us the feedback. We would love to hear about it. This has been Flipping the Playbook. And thank you very much, Anthony.
Thank you so much.
Flipping the Playbook is produced by SALT.agency. We don't just optimize for search and AI. We optimize for business growth across SEO content and digital PR. Check out our links in the show notes. Thanks for listening.